Hello, everyone. Shannon Bishop here to share with you my dissertation study proposal. My dissertation title is Self-Efficacy in Non-Traditional Mathematics Course Modalities, an investigation of self-efficacy, modality, and choice control. And I'm glad to be sharing it with you here today. So a little bit of background to the introduction and problem. So courses that were once considered non-traditional, such as online, live online, and hybrid, have been historically an area of interest, but also an area of concern because of their increased prevalence, certainly, but also their often cited lower success rates, particularly in mathematics. And with regards to mathematics, which is the subject of interest for this study, students often avoid taking math online because they view it as hard and quite frankly, too challenging to be taken in an online setting. And within mathematics, the variable of self-efficacy, which is the one's beliefs in their ability to organize and execute the necessary course of action to reach a desired attainment, has been found numerous times to be the strongest non-academic predictor of mathematics success. And up until this point, self-efficacy has primarily been related to outcomes in traditional settings, face-to-face learning environments, and very little is known regarding mathematics content self-efficacy in the online environments. And these courses that were once considered non-traditional are really not so non-traditional anymore in light of COVID-19. And so further investigation of the variable of self-efficacy in these modalities is certainly an area of interest and of need. So some relevant literature here, we'll start with self-efficacy. So as stated earlier, self-efficacy has been found to be the strongest non-academic predictor of student success, and it is especially important in mathematics. And the variance in one's self-efficacy beliefs in math has been explained by the four sources, but primarily mastery experiences explains the largest amount of variance in a person's self-efficacy beliefs. But that's followed by vicarious experiences. And that is of interest for this study because vicarious experiences are obtained by observing others, whether it's their peers or their instructor. But through those observations, those vicarious experiences, students will gauge their capabilities by comparing themselves to their peers. So for instance, if they watch a classmate find success, then they determine that, hey, maybe they can too. And so that is certainly an area of interest for this study due to the fact that the online environment arguably does not provide as many opportunities for students to have vicarious experiences. And similarly, the social aspect of self-efficacy is of interest because social models and social comparisons have been found to absolutely influence self-efficacy and achievement. And once again, those social opportunities are very different in the online environment than they are in the traditional environment. Furthermore, in the non-traditional courses, hybrid classes, for instance, have been found to have higher self-efficacy and cognitive presence than those of their fully online counterparts. There has been positive correlations found between course completion in the online environment and self-efficacy. So essentially, students with higher self-efficacy were more likely to complete an online course. There's also a relationship between grades and self-efficacy. In-person classes had both higher grades as well as higher self-efficacy compared to their online counterparts. And self-efficacy was related to achievement in both formats. So the higher the self-efficacy, the higher the achievement. That was true for face-to-face settings as well as online settings. So again, self-efficacy is very much a variable of interest with regards to academic outcomes. However, the majority of these relationships have been conducted in a face-to-face setting. So most of these positive relationships that have been cited took place in face-to-face environments, and there is not much known with regards to self-efficacy, especially mathematics self-efficacy in the online environment. Another piece of this puzzle that's important in the literature is the concept of motivation, choice, control, and how it relates to efficacy. So many researchers have stated that when you're faced with an experience that is deemed controlling, that it will diminish your intrinsic motivation. So any condition that feels like it's controlling will diminish intrinsic motivation. And typically people will avoid activities that they think are outside of their coping abilities. Well, this is all very interesting right now because under the confines of COVID-19, there are not many choices with regards to which modality a student can take. And so students might be feeling controlled externally by the circumstances of COVID-19, and that they can't avoid certain modalities because, well, it's the only one available. And so again, moving down the list here, when you have feelings of choice control, it's been found to increase your confidence and also motivation. And self-efficacy is a precursor to motivation. Feelings of self-efficacy will maintain a person's intrinsic motivation. So all of these variables are related in the sense that the more control a student might feel regarding their circumstance, the higher self-efficacy they might have. And if they have higher self-efficacy, then they might feel more motivated. And so all of these things are indeed interrelated in a meaningful way in this study. And then furthermore, the social comparisons, once again, that have already been mentioned, but those social comparisons not only affect efficacy, but they also affect motivational outcomes. And so again, the social aspect of learning has been found to be very critical in education and motivation and efficacy. And all of those social components are in a very tricky spot right now, with the majority of learning being online in this academic year. And then finally, speaking of online learning, just online learning in general, like I said, has been, it's been under scrutiny, for lack of better words. The success rates and the withdrawal rates are higher for online students than they are face-to-face. And students typically earn higher grades in a face-to-face setting than they do in online for mathematics. Face-to-face courses typically have higher course satisfactions. And one interesting one, though, is that one study has found that online courses actually had higher pass rates, but that's when attrition was accounted for. So it is still true that online courses have significantly higher withdrawal rates, but once all those students are, quote, weeded out, then the online environment has sometimes shown that it has higher pass rates. But again, they've weeded out so many students that the attrition alone is still very problematic when it comes to online learning. So this dissertation is going to be a journal-ready format dissertation. And so I would now like to share with you the purpose, research questions, and methodology of one of the studies within this journal-ready dissertation. And that one study that I would like to focus on is entitled Self-Efficacy and Modality, an examination of differences in self-efficacy in live online and traditional online course modalities. So the purpose of this non-experimental quantitative study was to examine the relationship between students' self-reported self-efficacy beliefs regarding mathematics at the beginning and end of the semester in the synchronous and asynchronous online modalities. And the second purpose of this study was to examine the relationship between students' self-efficacy as it relates to students' satisfaction and perception of choice regarding the modality of the course. So the research questions that guided this study are: to what extent do students' self-efficacy scores differ for those beginning a live online, that's synchronous, or traditional online, that's asynchronous, mathematics course? To what extent do students' self-efficacy scores differ for those completing a live online or traditional online math course? To what extent do students' mathematics self-efficacy scores differ from beginning to end of semester in both the live online and traditional online settings? But then also, to what extent do students' self-efficacy scores differ based on their preference for taking that modality at the beginning of the course? And to what extent do students' self-efficacy scores differ based on their preference for taking that modality at the end of the mathematics course? And finally, to what extent do mathematics students' self-efficacy scores differ, once again, based on their preference for the modality from beginning to end of the semester? So the method that this study will employ is a quantitative, non-experimental survey design. And both Cresswell and Cresswell 2018, as well as Salkind 2012, state that a study that is intended to investigate possible relationships between variables, especially variables regarding attitudes and beliefs, can be appropriately done so using a non-experimental quantitative survey design. And so that is what guided the choice with regards to the methods of this study. The instrumentation that will be used in this study, again, the primary variable of interest is self-efficacy. And so the survey questions intended to measure self-efficacy include Usher and Pajadas's 2009 survey instrument that measures the 4 sources of self-efficacy. It's called the Sources of Self-Efficacy in Mathematics scale. It's 24 questions, 6 questions for each of the 4 sources. That's where those 24 questions come from. And then also the 8 general self-efficacy questions that exist on the MSLQ. So those will be the questions that measure students' self-efficacy. It's Likert style on a scale of 1 to 7. And then there's also questions in the survey, though, instrumentation, intended to capture students' perception regarding the modality and their choice control. So for instance, there's 2 questions on the survey intended to capture students' feeling of choice control. So for example, one question asks students whether or not the modality that they're enrolled in was their preferred modality, and also if it is the circumstances of COVID-19 that prevented them from taking what would have been their preferred modality. And then there's also one question intended to capture their perception of the experience. And that question is essentially phrased as, were you looking forward to taking a course in this modality? And those are also Likert style, ranging from 1 through 7. Strongly disagree, strongly agree, 1 through 7. The sampling method for this study is convenience sample, and the target population is simply all students enrolled in live online and traditional online mathematics courses at Chandler Gilbert Community College. And participants were recruited via email to participate in the study. The data was obtained using SurveyMonkey. So the survey instrument was housed as well as administered within a secure SurveyMonkey account with informed consent prior to engaging with the survey. And the proposed analyses include mean comparisons of self-efficacy scores, as well as regression correlations to seek if there's a relationship between the variables of interest in this study. The timeline for the proposed study is such that I have a current IRB through Maricopa Community College District for fall of 2020, as well as spring of 2021. And so students are engaging in this survey right now and will continue to do so in the spring. However, none of that data can be looked at until I first obtain a Sam Houston State University IRB, as well as a new Maricopa IRB that essentially allows for the use of that archival data in a dissertation study. And so my hope is to obtain those IRBs either in the summer of 2021 or the fall of 2021. And the significance of this study is that, self-efficacy has primarily been looked at in the online environment regarding just computer self-efficacy. So whether or not a student feels like they can navigate technology, not so much the content of the course that they're taking via the technology, but just their comfort with technology. So this study most definitely could fill a gap in the literature in an important way. And the large scale shift that took place at Chandler Community College really provides a unique opportunity to look at this non-academic factor in a meaningful way. Prior to 2020, only 9% of mathematics courses were offered online. And now, I mean, almost 100% of the courses, there's only 2 classes that are hybrid right now. All of the rest are indeed online. And within that online modality, none were live online prior to this. 0% of courses have ever been offered in the live online setting. Whereas now in fall of 2020, as well as spring of 2021, we have a pretty strong representation of live online courses being offered. And so the large scale shift really provides an opportunity to gather large scale data with regards to this variable in these modalities. And with regards to the social learning aspect of education, live online and traditional online will presumably have various degrees of social learning. And considering social learning is a very important piece of self-efficacy, not only with regards to students' vicarious experiences, as mentioned earlier, but also their verbal persuasion. That's another source of self-efficacy that is of interest. That social learning piece of education in general, but also mathematics self-efficacy, is one that has not been studied in large scale due to lack of opportunity until quite possibly now. And so being able to look at this very important non-academic variable of self-efficacy in these various modalities, again, each of which have different social learning opportunities, is a meaningful contribution to the literature. And it will also hopefully help inform future programming as we offer more online classes in the future. If it's found that students are significantly more, have higher self-efficacy in the live online setting, then that might be used to inform the volume of courses that we offer in the future that are indeed live online, as opposed to asynchronous online. And so not only does it inform the field with regards to filling a gap in the literature, but it can also help stakeholders of our campus and potentially sister colleges with regards to programming in the future regarding these modalities. So that is my dissertation proposal. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to hearing your feedback and answering any questions you might have. Thank you.